everyone, if you are new here, my name is B. I am a fully qualified actuary. Welcome to my channel and join me on a journey to study smarter, work better, and live happier. So I got a lot of questions from people who are interested in switching into the actuarial profession. So today is another episode of Get to Know an Actuary series featuring Saygun. So similarly to me, he has a FSA, FCIA, and CERA. But he only knew about the actual profession after starting working full-time already after undergrad, when I already knew about the profession back in university where I majored in for my undergraduate program. So let's hear about his actual career path in today's video. So can you tell us about yourself and how did you hear about the actual profession in the first place?
I'm actually with the Financial Services Regulatory Authority in Ontario. I have been in the industry for almost 10 years now. I worked in life insurance in Ontario, benefits consulting in Istanbul, pension consulting in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, and I guess now I'm with a regulator body still in pensions. And I guess how I heard about the profession, mine would be considered a career change, although I was still in the financial industry prior to my actual adventure. I certainly hadn't heard about the profession until I was like 23 or 24. And at the time I was working for Investors Group in a small city called Saint John in New Brunswick. And the CEO of the company had a funny title called Actuary. And he would never know this, but it was the initial inspiration for me to switch careers. I thought it sounded cool at first, and then I dove right into Google searching. And you know how the rest of the story goes. You're in those websites, and all of a sudden you're convinced that it is a good idea. and in my mind, the theory was great because it's a perfect combination of math and business. And I'm assuming a lot of people are sold on that idea for the same reason. Coming out of school with a mathematics degree, there are not a ton of career options in private sector. So that's really the story.
Can you elaborate on what made you decide to switch to become an actuary once you learned about it?
I'm thinking it's, again, for very similar reasons that everyone kind of thinks through. You enjoy math problem solving in school, but then when you think of career opportunities, there's not a lot of options out there. And the actual profession has a very good reputation, especially here in North America. Plus, we've all heard of actuaries having a good work-life balance, low stress levels, and they get paid a decent salary. I think the websites do a really good job promoting these perks, and I don't know how it is these days, but especially at the time when I was doing my research, being an actuary was on top of the list for best careers in North America. So that was definitely a good encouragement for me. But I think the main reason, so if I can elaborate on what my situation was like, the main reason why I chose to become an actuary is that I needed mobility in my career at the time. Before I got into actuarial science, I was doing fairly well as a financial consultant, but due to the nature of that work, my portfolio would be based in where I lived at the time, and that wasn't exciting enough for me. I needed to do something that allowed me to move to different places easily and be able to make a living. Frankly, that's exactly what I got from the profession when I look back now. And if you're not one of those techie, trendy, marketing or influencer type of personalities, that mobility may be a luxury for you. And I like that side of it for personal reasons. And I tested in I guess 2 countries, here and overseas, and I can confidently say that it works. But I know now with COVID, a lot of other jobs now have discovered new limits on that front as well. So that was my mind state, at least at the time. There was one other thing I appreciate that. It's like another hidden perk of being an actuary. I appreciate that more the longer I work as an actuary. It is a great conversation starter. I'll tell you that. I mean, you walk in the room, you tell them you're an actuary. Everyone knows one or two actuary jokes, and everyone is in on that. It's amazing how universal it is. Even in Turkey, in Canada, in Europe, everyone has one or two actuary jokes.
So I totally agree about the mobility aspect. So being an actuary, it really gives me confidence that I can go anywhere and find employment, and not just restricted in the actual field, but also for many business roles in the insurance industry in general. So get back to your actual career path. How did you get your first actuarial job?
Good question. I guess after a few years in the financial industry, I went to Waterloo for the master's program in Actuarial Science there. A really, really good program. One thing they did really well is that they facilitated opportunities for us to connect with a variety of potential employers while we were in the program, and that allowed us to, for most of us, to find employment before the convocation day. So I guess I made the move to a full-time master's program first, and then got my first actuarial job from there. And that is something I definitely recommend if it works for people. It also felt like a little bit of a break for me at the time from the corporate life for a year. And going back to campus was at the time, where I was at, was really energizing. Obviously, it's when you're at the right place, the right time, it feels good. But I certainly recognize that, if it was at a different time in my life, it wouldn't have been as easy, or I wouldn't have been able to take that risk, right? Your finances, logistics, everything needs to kind of fall into the right place. I guess for me, especially at the time, there wasn't a lot of, I call them real responsibilities. And part of it is also, I like to think that I was a lot more of a risk taker at the time, which, it's just funny because poverty, go take the risk, be as bold as you can. Don't be afraid to do something, like changing your career. Because if you do switch to an actuarial career, the profession will teach you exactly the opposite of that. So while you can, take as much risk as you can.
I think the key thing with taking a master in actuarial science is not about the education. Of course, it definitely can help you to get back on studying and getting started with actual exam. But the key thing here, as I mentioned, is the opportunity to connect to potential employers. So Waterloo is definitely one of the great schools for that. And I don't think you need to take actual science either. Like statistics is another option. Waterloo also has a few programs with co-op options for both undergrad and graduate programs. And working experience is extremely helpful. So employers will most of the time choose someone with both exams and relevant working experience over someone with just academic achievements. Definitely looking into whether you can get some internship or co-op experience to try out actual jobs. And this also help you to see whether you like working in this area, in this field or not. So once you started working, how was your journey becoming an actuary? Was it difficult getting adjusted to working and studying at the same time?
It was probably, like every other profession, easy at times and really difficult at other times. And when you think of how long of a journey it is, for an average person at least, it is expected that you will go through different chapters of your life while juggling through exams and full-time work at the same time, right? I mean, like I said, every profession has its own challenges, but the way I see it, we're pretty lucky, especially here in North America. The industry, at least a large portion of the industry, seems to have a standard in providing support through exams. And you often have other peers who are going through the same struggle, especially in large companies. It would have been, it would have been definitely more difficult if let's say I was the only person writing actuarial exams in my company. and I didn't have any peers to discuss those exams, what their experiences went. And I would say when you look back, when it's all done, it kind of feels like you've accomplished something very challenging. But at the same time, it is a very rewarding process.
So do you think there is any age where it's too late to become an actuary? I got a lot of questions from like, oh, I am 26. Can I still become an actuary? How about 30? How about 32?
42. 42 is the latest. No, I'm kidding. I don't think there's an age that's too late. But again, exams are a huge barrier for entry, and that's probably one of the main reasons or discouraging factors for career changers to do it later in their lives. So in a traditional manner, I tend to think that it's the earlier the better. However, I see it all the time. I mean, whether people change careers or stop writing exams and pick them back up later in their career. I mean, I did both. Looking back at it, it took me just a little over 8 years to complete the whole exam process. But I think I took a decent amount of break in the middle. I wasn't looking at it as something I needed to finish right away. And when you talk to other actuaries, you'll often hear the advice of enjoy the process, right? So I'd like to think that I did okay on that front. And some would say that I may have actually enjoyed it too much, right? And I mean, on another note, I find that career changers in general bring a different perspective into the actuarial profession in general. And if it is later in their career, maybe that perspective or that different mindset maybe more prevalent, and they still make very successful actuaries. It all depends on specific individual situation. And another thing I assume there's got to be a fair amount of people, who may have to work with actuaries or who manage actual functions in their businesses, and they may want to be able to speak the language and understand the technicalities, and it can be an outlet for them. It may be another reason why they decide to start writing exams, or maybe write a few, or maybe achieve the associate level, and that may be all they need, or they're willing to sacrifice in terms of time and resources at the time. So I certainly feel that despite the high barrier for entry, there is some situations where it would make sense. And again, I'll say that it's if it works for you, go for it. Don't be afraid to take risks.
Now that you're already in the actual profession for 10 years, so given your diverse experience, I want to ask, how is it different in different areas like life insurance, benefit, consulting, pension consulting, and in different countries?
Dynamics in these different fields, whether it's insurance, pensions, or benefits, or different countries. I mean, some of the technical aspects stay very valid at each time, but I would think that your complementary skills come into effect there, and that's kind of, it will depend on how you adopt working in these different environments and reporting through different structures and in different manners as well, right? Some industries will be highly regulated, and your reporting will be dictated by the regulators. And I was in certain situations where we had to pave the way, and that had its own challenges and advantages. And I find that going through the experience, at least, kind of helped me broaden my vision at the very least, right? Plus, you get to meet with a lot of people, you get to learn from different perspectives. So all those other stuff, it also adds to your experience. I mean, on the flip side, I think I should also mention that it takes away from the opportunity of building your expertise in one niche area as well. So it's all great to move around and experience these different companies or industries, but if you had stayed in the same place for say 15, 20 years in the same company, that would give you a different opportunity to kind of build your expertise in that field. So there's pros and cons.
So thanks so much for sharing your actual career journey with us. Any final advice for people who would like to switch to become an actuary?
To switch profession, in making that decision for a career change, I find that research becomes very important. And I think, again, actuaries do a good job sharing their knowledge and experiences. No need to be shy. Pick up the phone and call an actuary or write an email. I mean, who calls anyone these days, right? Write an email. Again, you and your YouTube channel is a great resource. I know there's a lot of other resources out there that people can go through before making a decision. And I'd say that, I guess, to summarize it, I say that research, talking to actuaries, don't not being afraid of taking risk, and following your heart is important, I find. Because if you're not happy with your current job, or if you think there's a reason that pushes you to look into something, I think it's important to listen to that as well. Also, keep in mind that even if you change your mind later, the actuarial education teaches you so many skills that can be applicable in every other line of business. And also, like I said, be ready to be picked on. If you do make a decision, you're going to be picked on in meetings for the rest of your career. And if you think that kind of conversation starter is what you're looking for, being an actuary is, you can definitely be a shortcut to that. And I can't, so obviously I have to mention that lastly, if you just switch your career, enjoy the process.
So Saygun mentioned about the different actual resource programs that company can offer, especially in North America. And they will provide support from like exam reimbursement to study hours to get you through the exams, because they do want you to get qualified. It's always great to have a group of people going through the same challenge and struggle, so we can all support each other. And even if you are going through on this path by yourself, find people that would always cheer you on and can tell you keep going even when you feel like giving up is very important. Definitely, like Saygun said, the earlier you start, the easier it is to write on the exam. But I think getting started at like 25, 30, 35, so on, not too late at all. And you don't have to go on the way to become a fellow either. So getting qualified as an associate is also an option, and it still can bring you a very rewarding career. So I think it is about cost and benefit when making these kind of decisions. So let's say you are 40 now and you plan to work until 65. So you still have 25 years in your career. So what can you do if you stay in your current path versus what can you do if you switch? Can you spend the next 5 years studying and working so that your career advancement or career enjoyment is greater? Or you will just be as happy over the long run, or like if you stay. So these are the things that you have to consider and make decisions for yourself. Not only for career switcher, but also for high school or university students who consider an actuary profession. So doing the research, talking to people and see what resources are available out there are very useful. And the more information you have, the more informed decision you can make. So I really like Saygun find advice that at the end of the day, follow your heart, take risk, and enjoy the process. So the author of the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, also say that happiness requires a struggle. It's a process and not an end. So happiness is a journey and not a destination. So good luck everyone on your chosen path. So I hope you find this video helpful, and don't forget to give it a like and share with those who may find it beneficial. And as always, let me know if you have any questions in the comment section. And you can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook, where I share my story occasionally and also ask for feedback for future videos. So have a great week ahead, and I will see you in the next video. Bye now.
And my camera, I thought I started recording. It just turned off automatically. Sorry. Do you want to do that again there on the phone?
No, I think this question is fine. I didn't hear any internet corruptions for the first question, so I think that's fine.
All right, I'll start recording it here as well again.
This is more like a risk mitigation option.
That's what we all learn to do as actuaries, right?
Yep.
42. 42 is the latest.
Nice. Yay.
Okay.